Well, they pick, and Republicans, well, they're just sick. The Justice Department tapping an Obama supporter to lead the criminal probe into the IRS targeting of conservatives. To the Washington Times, Stephen Dinan, who broke this story. Who is this person, Steve?
Her name is Barbara Bosserman. She's a career trial lawyer for the Justice Department, and her records show that she's contributed $6,000 in the last two presidential campaigns to President Obama. And as you said, this has Republican investigators who've been trying to find out about this FBI investigation. They had to do a lot of digging to even come up with the name of Bosserman as the lead of this investigation, and they're furious. They can't believe the Justice Department would put somebody who's an avowed Obama supporter in charge of an investigation where, the president and his actions and the actions of his administration are at stake and under investigation.
You know what's kind of weird, Steve, is the Justice Department, when it was asked to comment on this, said, we don't look at political affiliations. That shouldn't come up in the process. But this whole scandal is about targeting politically and targeting conservative groups. So methinks at least that should come up in the selection process to make sure this person, whoever it's going to be, is going to be as apolitical as possible.
There are a couple of options there. One is that the Justice Department, I can understand them saying, look, we're not allowed to go out and specifically say, you're an Obama supporter, we can't have you. But they could go out and say, hey, do you think you're qualified for this? Is there anything in your history that means maybe you shouldn't do this? Let the person recuse him or herself. There are options here. And as you said, it's a really touchy situation. There's a reason why the president came out and said, I want my Justice Department to investigate this. That's the sort of thing where you'd think they'd take extra steps to make sure the investigation was as clean as possible. The main problem now is that whatever the investigation comes up with, and so far we're 8 months in and we haven't seen anything out of it, whatever they come up with, because of this woman's history, Republicans are now going to say the whole thing is tainted, and already are saying it's tainted even before we see any of the conclusions.
Amazing. Stephen, thank you very much. Great reporting as always. Stephen Dinan of the fine Washington Times. Now, we're going to be looking at this and the fallout from all of this, but what if I told you Obamacare is having no real effect on hiring? That's coming up. But in the meantime, someone whose group is affected by this decision today, Tom Zastowski, represents a lot of these groups that have been really at the target of the IRS. And I guess, Tom, in looking at this, now probably is less cooperative, not quite so keen to be cooperative with an investigation. What?
Well, Neil, it's good to be with you again. Happy New Year, by the way.
You as well.
And, this is a thing that your viewers have to understand. This thing has just got a life of its own. As Steve said, it's been since May 13th when President Obama said he was outraged and he would hold fully accountable anybody who acted in anything but a neutral or nonpartisan way. That was the president's quote. So now what do? A highly politicized, investigation. They put a party hack in charge of it. And
well,
not just any party hack.
They argue she's not a party hack, that a lot of presidential appointees are obviously like the person who's appointing them. Now, that isn't flying with you, though. I'm wondering, would you be cooperative, or do you think your people will be cooperative with this investigation if you feel that really it's the fox in charge of the henhouse?
Well, she may not be a party hack, but it doesn't make sense that they go not just to the Justice Department to find this person, but they appoint an attorney in the Civil Rights Division, which is one of the most politicized parts of the Justice Department. When our friend Congressman Jim Jordan was asking Mueller who was in charge of the investigation, and he didn't know, we thought it was this guy. We thought he was in charge of the investigation because for 8 months he couldn't find me, Neil. You found me. Call Neil Cavuto. He'll give you my phone number, because the FBI hasn't talked to me or anybody else.
Well, do you know if any of these groups, I mean, you mentioned you, but I've talked to a lot of them on Fox Business Network, the same thing, which, by the way, Tom, if you don't get, you should demand. But one of the things that they keep telling me is that their phone has not been ringing. They have not gotten calls. They have not gotten even inquiries. They've not even gotten mailings or emails about what they knew and when they knew it and who was targeting them and asking them questions. So methinks that this might all be a charade.
Well, see, Neil, and I mean, that's exactly the point. I mean, the yellow tape on this crime scene is so old it's turned to dust. I mean, there's no action, and so the only action you see is what? The Treasury Department coming out with new ideas for rules to just basically institutionalize what the IRS did to us illegally. Right? They're trying to fix it. They're trying to cover it up. And here you go with this next step with Grossman. and I'm supposed to expect that I'm going to get some justice? I think we need to send a guy over to the Justice Department with a chisel and chisel in no justice on the Justice Department, because that's what we're getting, is no justice.
Or you could bring the Clouseau picture, which I think is infinitely funnier. Tom, very good seeing you. Thank you very, very much.
Thanks, Neil.